F. Renault engine is an automotive internal combustion engine, 4-stroke, with 4 cylinders in-line bored directly into the iron block, water-cooled, with tree-driven overhead camshafts by a distribution belt with an aluminum cylinder head, overhead valve, developed and produced by Renault in the early 80s, making its appearance on the Renault 9 and Renault 11. This engine is available in petrol and diesel versions, with 8 or 16 valves. History: in December 1982, the Renault board proposed a new 1596 km3 diesel 55 bhp for the Renault 9. It will be known as F8M2. The new 1.6D designed by engineer George Twin and his team engine turns a page in the history of Renault. The latter effect was not long ago created an entirely new engine designed fully Renault. In addition, this unique diesel break with some old habits home, especially regarding the machining of cylinder engines since it has no removable shirt so often touted by Renault to promote easy exchange so-called shot swept. Technicians considered that this argument had lost much of its appeal thanks to advances in technology metals that significantly slow the wear of rubbing parts machined. This modern 4-cylinder naturally adopts a camshaft in head which the drive is operated through a toothed belt that also controls diesel injection pump. A second belt rotates the alternator and water pump, while a vacuum pump located at the rear for the brake assist by master vac. The cast iron block is topped by a light alloy cylinder head Ricardo Comet brake chamber. In practice, this new engine will prove little greedy. This is the first real diesel Renault engine, since the engine J8S 2.1D Renault 20 and Renault 30 was produced by the French Society of Mechanical. The engine of the Renault F8 M9 is disposed under the hood transversely inclined at 12 degrees towards the rear. A few months after the release of the Renault 9 diesel, the Renault 11 was launched in April 1983, which will adopt the new diesel later in the fall of 1983. In the fall of 1983, Renault launched its new petrol engine F2N of 1721 km3 with dual carburetor body whose base is that of F8M 1.6D. It has an architecture with diesel-type combustion chambers integrated with pistons, which is not common on a petrol engine. He appears on Renault 11 GTX, Renault 11 TXE futuristic R11 TXE electronic with digital meter and speech synthesis. In February 1984, the Renault 9 in turn adopts the F2N 1.7-litre engine for its new versions R9 GTX and R9 TXE. Until the arrival of F2N engine, the Renault 9 and Renault 11 species were equipped only CLA copyright on Fonti engine 1108 km3 and 1397 km3 with lateral camshaft, which were of old design, since this engine had appeared in 1962 on the Renault 8 and Renault Fluoride. For the highest ranges of the Renault 9 and Renault 11 versions, it was necessary to have a more powerful engine and especially more modern design, which is the role of F2N engine. Renault no longer wished to use the CLA copyright on R engine of the Renault 18, which was also old design. Versions CLA copyright on Fonti engines are naturally preserved and also later versions sport Renault 9 Turbo, and Renault 11 Turbo will be equipped with CLA copyright on Fonti 1.4-litre engine with a Garrett turbo. Renault 9 and Renault 11 models are essential for Renault as they not only give rise to the F-Type engine, as they inaugurate a new technical basis that will be used on many models. Indeed, the chassis is reused for Renault 19, Megane 1 and Scenic 1 and derived for Super 5, Express, Clio 1, Clio 2, Kangoo 1 and Twingo 2. Renault 9 and Renault 11 are the first cars to use a Renault engine in a transverse position, which will give rise to the gearbox JB still equip the Twingo 2. F2N in that the motor is designed on a diesel engine, makes it a very strong engine, but with a bolt in its design which places the manifold just above the exhaust manifold, causing heating. The base of the carburetor has long deforms and created an area outlet. Thereafter, the F8MD 1.6 diesel engine will also equip the Super 5 Express, and the Volvo 340 and Volvo 360. The petrol engine of 1721 km3 F2N equip Renault 21, Super 5, Renault 19, Clio 1, Volvo 340, Volvo 360 and also the Volvo 440, 460 and 480 Coupe. a version with single-barrel carburetor of 1721 cm3 petrol Renault F-Type equips some 1 and some R21. It will take the engines such as F1N. The 1721 cm3 petrol version also exists multi-point injection. It will take the engines such as F3N. Will equip the US versions of Renault 9 and Renault 11 or US R21 and Renault Super 511 GTE, and GTE will be sporting versions of R11 and Super 5 in some countries such as Switzerland and Germany, as turbo engines carburetor no longer meet the pollution standards in these countries, so the Super 5 GTE will be sold instead of the Super 5 GT Turbo and GTE R11 instead of R11. Turbo. Volvo Turbo, even grafted on 1721 cm3 with multi-point fuel injection and engine types, will be 18 FT, and equip the coupe Volvo 480 Turbo, the 440 Turbo Volvo and Volvo 460 Turbo. These engines are often sought to make swaps on Super 5 GT Turbo, Renault 9 Turbo and Renault 11 Turbo. Nowadays the engines are produced in the engine manufacturing facility at Clack Copyright On, near to Rouen in Normandy. Evolution. Diesel versions. Beginning in 1987, the 1.6D undergoes changes to make it more quiet. This F8M second generation will unfortunately weaker at the cylinder head and head gasket. More asbestos will be dropped, which will exacerbate the problems of cylinder head gaskets. Externally, a second-generation F8M detected by its cylinder head cover 6, which is secured by small screws, while a first-generation F8M3 has closed nuts for securing the valve cover. The housing for dispensing a F8M second-generation part has a non-painted around the injection pump, while a first-generation F8M the casing has completely black distribution. In 1988, Renault launched the Renault 19 in place of a 9 and a 11, the F8M 1.6D developing 55 bhp diesel engine of its predecessors is not powerful enough to equip the heavier R19. Renault changes the race and bore of 1.6D, to obtain 1870 cm3, which will give rise to F8Q developing 65 horsepower. This engine will also equip engine eventually the Clio 1, Clio 2 Express, R21, Kangoo, Megane 1 and Traffic 1. A deflated version producing 55 ch-din will appear in the 90s. The problems keep F8Q heads and heads of Seal's F8M second generation. At the end of 1988, a turbocharged version of the 1.9D is sold on the R19. The engine will F8QT engine types. It will develop 95 horsepower din. It will also equip Megane 1, and the Volvo 440, Volvo 460. Volvo S40 and V40. In the fall of 1997, Renault team a 1.9DT a direct injection, which gave birth to the first Renault engine with direct injection, the 1.9DT. It will take F9Q engine types. It will equip the MAR copyright Gain 11 SCAR copyright Nick, Laguna 1, Clio Kangoo 1 and 2, and the Volvo S40 and V40. In July 1999, his Team 1.9DT, the principle of common rail high pressure, giving birth to the first DCI engine, the 1.9 DCI kind F9Q. It will appear on the Laguna 1 Phase 2. The 1.9 DCI also equipped the last two phases: 1 MAR copyright Gain SCAR copyright Nick 1 Phase 2, Laguna 2, 2 MAR copyright Gain, SCAR copyright Nick 2, Area 3, Area 4, Traffic 2, Master 2, Volvo S40, Volvo V40, Suzuki Grand Vitara, and Nissan Primera. Gasoline versions. In 1986, the Renault 21, 2.0 appears, with a displacement of 1965 cm3, F2 type such as a twin-barrel carburetor and F3 type injection version. The F3R of 1965 cm3 also equipped Renault Alliance GTA in North America. In 1989, Renault launched the sports version of the Renault 19, replacing the Renault 9 Turbo and Renault 11 Turbo. Renault abandons its legendary 1.4 Clack copyright on Fonti turbo carburetor in favor of a multi-valve engine and multi-point injection. It will be an evolution of the engine of 1721 cm3 F2N. The race remains the same, but the bore is increased. giving a displacement of 1764 km3, topped by a 16-valve cylinder head that will equip the R1916S. This engine F7P 140 bhp also equipped the Clio 16S in February 1991, replacing the Super 5 GT Turbo. In July 1992, the Clio 16S and 16S19 are fitted as standard with a catalytic converter, in order to comply with pollution standards applicable to January 1, 1993, which makes them lose 3C. Clio Williams appeared in 1993. As its name suggests the Renault Clio Williams was not designed to celebrate titles gleaned in Formula One with the team of Frank Williams, but before any approval for competition. In order to run in Group A, Renault needs a 2.0-litre engine to be the best equipped in its class. So starting the engine block F7P, the Renault Clio 16S, Renault will develop its 1998 km3 F7R 150 bhp. The increase in capacity will then pass logically by reaming of 0.7 mm and with the adoption of a Clio diesel crankshaft to get the race 83.5 to 93 mm. This crankshaft rode original, thus better cash constraints to the increased torque will now reach 175 Nm at 4,500 rankines per minute. The F7 are also equipped MAR copyright Gain 1 and Renault Spider off. At January 1, 1993, all species cars must be equipped with a fuel injection system and a catalytic converter. On this occasion the F2N of 1721 km3 sees its increased bore and has a cylinder capacity of 1794 km3. It will bring the engines such as F3P on the Renault Clio 1 and 19, and B18U on the Volvo 440 and Volvo 460. In contrast, the Renault 21, then at retirement, retains its 1721 km3, but with the injection, Volvo will also retain the 1721 km3 injection, alongside the new 1794 km3. In 1994, the Laguna will be equipped with one engine F3P. Volvo also marketed a 1596cc's petrol version with multipoint injection, sold as the B16F in Volvo nomenclature. It was installed in the Volvo 440 and 460 models. Peculiarly, this engine has the same bore and stroke as the diesel F8M engine. Version 8 valves engine F7 or Clio Williams 115 bhp will appear on Laguna 1. It will also equip the MAR copyright Gain 1 Scenic Area 1 and 3, it will be known as F3R. The Volvo 440, 460 and 480, this engine will be known as B20F. The new 1998cc's F3R replaced the old 1965cc's F3R engine. The F4P first appeared in 1998, in the Phase 2 model of the first-generation Laguna. This new 16-valve 1.8 also equips the first MAR copyright Gain SCAR copyright NIC and the second-generation Laguna. At the same time, the bigger F4R is installed in the Laguna and a space. The engine is the same size as the F7 as in the Clio Williams. It ends up also being installed in the second and third generation MAR copyright Gain as well as the second Laguna. The specificity of F4P and F4R engines is that they have a 16-valve cylinder head, similar to the K4J and K4M versions of Renault's K engine. In 1999, the F5R engine appeared. This is an F7R engine, equipped with direct injection. This 16-valve DI engine is installed in the Megane Cooper copyright and convertible, as well as the Laguna 2. This was the first production French petrol engine with direct injection. In 2001, Renault launched the Clio 2RS, powered by the 1998cc's F4R 16-valve engine with 172 picoseconds. This was developed from the F7R engine of the Clio Williams. In 2004, the Phase 3 version of the Clio 2RS gained 10 horsepower for a total of 182 picoseconds. Power increased further in 2006 for the Clio 3RS, now with 197 picoseconds, increased again to 203 picoseconds for the Phase 2 model of the third-generation Clio RS. The F4R will also be grafted with a turbo, and will be known F4RT. It will equip two MAR copyright Gain, Laguna 2, Laguna 3 Aventime and Belsatis, but especially this basis used for the Megane 2 RS 225 horsepower. The Megane RS3 is presented in March 2009 at the Geneva show. It is equipped with a 2.016V turboblock F4AT. The Megane 2 RS, increased to 250 horsepower. In June 2011, Renault launched a limited edition RS Trophy. Power increases by 15 horsepower to 265 horsepower. Cylinder capacities. Discontinued. F1X equals. The F1X was only available with a displacement of 1.7 L. It has a parallel valve engine architecture aspirated by a single-barrel carburetor. Applications: F1N 1.7 L, BXS, 81.0 mm A, 83.5 mm, 1984 Euro 1997 Renault Tfic. F2X equals. The F2X is an 8-valve SOHC with double-barrel carburetor. Applications: F2N 1.7 L, BXS, 81.0 mm A, 83.5 mm, 1983 Euro 1989 Renault R11, 1984 Euro 1989 Renault R9, 1986 Euro 1995 Renault R21, 1988 Euro 1996 Renault R19, 1990 Euro 1997 Renault Clio, 1985 Euro Renault R5 Super 5. F2 R2.0 L, BXS, 82 by 93.0 mm. 1986 Euro 1993 Renault R21. F3X equals. The F3X is mechanically similar to the F2X, only used a monopoint EFI system. Some later versions were equipped with multipoint EFI. Applications: F3N 1.7 L, BXS, 81.0 by 83.5 mm. 1985 Euro 1989 Renault R11, 1985 Euro 1989 Renault R9, 1986 Euro 1995 Renault R21, 1988 Euro 2000 Renault R19, 1985 Euro 1993 Renault R5 Super 5, 1985 Euro 1987 Renault Alliance Encore. F3P 1.8 L, BXS, 82.7 by 83.5 mm. 1988 Euro 2000 Renault R19, 1992 Euro 1997 Renault Clio, 1994 Euro 1999 Renault Laguna 1. F3R 2.0 L, BXS, 82 by 93.0 mm. 1986 Euro 1993 Renault 21, 1987 Euro Renault Alliance GTA Special F3R variant of F3N for 1987 spec USA GTA only. F3R 2.0 L, BXS, 82.7 by 93.0 mm. 1994 Euro 2001 Renault Laguna 1, 1996 Euro Renault Espace, 1996 Euro Renault Megane, 1998 Euro Moskvich 214145 Euro OES Fiat Agora Euro. F5X equals. The F5X resembles the F4X mechanically with an architecture of 16 indirect actuated valves and DOHC, but used a direct injection IDE fuel system. Applications: F5 R2.0 L, BXS, 82.7 by 93.0 mm. 1999 Euro 2003 Renault Megane, 2001 Euro 2003 Renault Laguna 2. F7X equals. The F7X was the first of the F-Type engine family with a 16-valve DOHC configuration. The valves were directly actuated by hydraulic tappets. Both the 1.8 L as the 2.0 L were equipped with a multipoint EFI system. Applications: F7P 1.8 L, BXS, 82.0 by 83.5 mm. 1988 Euro 1997 Renault R19, 1991 Euro 1996 Renault Clio. F7 R2.0 L, BXS, 82.7 by 93.0 mm. 1993 Euro 1996 Renault Clio Williams, 1996 Euro 1999 Renault Megane, 1995 a Euro 1999 Renault Sport Spider, 1999 a Euro Moskvich 214,242 a Euro OE Ivan Kalai Euro. F8X equals, the F8X is the indirect injected diesel version and has an 8-valve SOHC architecture. It uses pre-combustion chambers achieve the required air-fuel mixing. Applications: F8M 1.6L, BXS, 78.0 by 83.5 mm. 1982 a Euro 1989 Renault 9, 1983 a Euro 1989 Renault 11, 1985 a Euro Renault 5 Super 5, 1986 a Euro Renault Extra. F8Q 1.9L, BXS, 80.0 by 93.0 mm. 1986 a Euro Renault Extra, 1988 a Euro 2000 Renault 19, 1990 a Euro 1995 Renault R21, 1991 a Euro 2001 Renault Clio, 1995 a Euro 2002 Renault Mar copyright gain, 1996 a Euro 2003 Renault Scar copyright nick, 1997 a Euro 2001 Renault Tfic, 1994 a Euro 1998 Mitsubishi Charisma, 1994 a Euro 1996 Volvo 440/460. 1995 a Euro 2004 Volvo S40 per Volt 40, 2002 a Euro 2006 Days a Pickup, 2003 a Euro 2005 Days a Silenza, 2001 a Euro 2004 Suzuki Samurai SJ419 Santana plus Suzuki Samurai SJ419 Santana Pickup. In production. F4X equals, the F4X is an indirect actuated 16-valve DOHC with a multipoint EFI system. F4P 1.8L, BXS, 82.7 by 83.0 mm. 1998 a Euro 2001 Renault Laguna 1, 2001 a Euro 2005 Renault Laguna 2, 2002 Proton Wajar 1.8L. F4 a 2.0L, BXS, 82.7 by 93.0 mm. 1993 a Euro 2000 Renault Laguna 1, 2003 a Euro Renault Mar copyright gain, 2003 a Euro Renault Scenic, 1996 a Euro Renault Espace, 2000 a Euro Renault Clio Renault Sport, 2000 a Euro Renault Tfic, 2000 a Euro Formula Renault 2.0, 2010 a Euro Dacia Duster, 2013 a Euro Praga R1. F4 a T2.0L, BXS, 82.7 by 93.0 mm. 2002 a Euro Renault Espace, Renault Velsatis, Renault Aventime, Renault Megane 3 TCE 180, Renault Laguna 2 Plus 3, Renault Scenic, twin-scroll turbo by Mitsubishi with 165 to 180 horsepower, 2003 a Euro Renault Megane 2 Sport 225 230 horsepower, 2005 a Euro Renault Laguna 2 3 GT 205 horsepower, 2009 a Euro Renault Megane 3 Sport 250,275 horsepower. F9X equals, the F9X is the direct injected diesel version and also features an 8-valve SOHC configuration. It has swirl generating intake ports to create swirling of the aspirated air, and either a toroidal or an L-spit piston bowl to twist the injected fuel vapor, also to achieve the required air-fuel mixing. The diesel fuel is delivered either by a mechanical injection pump or a common rail fuel injection installation. Applications: F9Q 1.9L, BXS, 80.0 by 93.0 mm. 1995 a Euro 2002 Renault Mar copyright gain, 1996 a Euro 2002 Renault Espace, 1997 a Euro 2010 Renault Master, 1997 a Euro 2001 Renault Laguna 1, 1998 a Euro 2004 Mitsubishi Charisma, 1998 a Euro 2004 Mitsubishi Space Star, 1998 a Euro 2004 Volvo S40. 2001 a Euro 2005 Renault Laguna 2, 2001 a Euro 2012 Renault Clio, 2005 a Euro Suzuki Grand Vitara. References